Yeah. I will bring your chair for you. All right, we just got the comfortable one. Now we're gonna have heavy now. I know. It's like, I don't know if it's about facility. It's when you started it.
That is cute.
Vincent is our token guy.
Story of my life.
Are you starting or am I starting, Ken?
We're just gonna wait for one more mic to run in. Should be just a couple of seconds here.
Okay, so we have this one.
And the other mic should be showing us soon. Let's get started. Okay. Hi everybody, how you doing?
Great.
Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. I hope you all were here for the fashion show. Was that incredible?
Yeah.
Welcome to Untold Stories, Voices from the Salish Sea. This is our third installment with a panel on sovereign style. Our Untold Stories series is tied into our Indigenous Health and Strength and Wellness exhibition upstairs, which if you haven't seen yet, please go check it out. It is absolutely amazing. We're going to get started in just a second, and I'll introduce some of the panelists. But before we do that, we're going to pause, like we always do, and just acknowledge that the land that we're on prior to colonization was the home of the sovereign people of the Suquamish Nation. We give thanks to their stewardship of the land and the waters that surround us. We acknowledge our history of colonialism and its impact on Native populations, and its continuing impact on Native populations. And we pay deep respect to their elders, both past, present, and future, as they continue to protect the land and the waters and their cultural traditions for generations to come. Our panel just before this last Saturday on Thursday, was Good Neighbors, and it was all about like how non-Native folks can become allies and really use their position and their privileges to support Native populations, especially within our neighborhood here. And probably people kind of wonder, well, why am I not asking our distinguished guests here to do the land acknowledgement? Well, the answer's kind of easy, right? It's their land, so we don't need to acknowledge that it is theirs. Instead, we ask them to give us a welcome instead. So I'm going to introduce Robin Saigo, who has been instrumental for everything that you've seen around our Indigenous Strength and Wellness programs here, from helping to co-curate the works, to design the programs, to picking films, to talking me down from panics.
We do that for each other. There's a lot of reciprocity there.
So, and then Robin's going to introduce the rest of our panel, but could you please welcome Robin Saigo.
Hello? Can you hear me? Oh, this one's probably going upstairs, isn't it? Everybody upstairs.
You took my other mic.
Oh, how funny. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Robin Little Wing Saigo, and I'm so excited because I get to be up on stage with these amazing people who I think only one of them got prior notice that they were actually going to have to sit up here. And the rest of them are just amazing, stylish people that are Suquamish and do wonderful work. And I'm really excited that we're all here. And so I think we'll just go down here first and introduce yourselves. And why don't you tell about something you're wearing and why you decided to wear that today?
Joel Gulapu, Gulapu Tidisha, Chelsea Jones Seedsta, Sokopsha. Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Jones. I'm from Suquamish. And today I decided to wear a modernized, dressed up version of a ribbon skirt. If you've seen the fashion show, I walked in it earlier. But right now I'm doing the, what do you call it, like the more chill version. I have my little high top Converse on instead of heels, yeah, docs. And all of this jewelry means a lot to me. Actually, everything I'm wearing means a lot to me, so.
Hi everyone, I'm Crystal Purcell. I'm from Suquamish and I'm from Blackfeet tribe in Montana as well. I wore these today. These are my favorite earrings right now. I made my mom make them for me and they have little owls at the bottom and my name in Blackfeet is Owl Woman. And so every time I wear them I just feel really like empowered and I carry a piece of my mom and my whole family with me everywhere I go.
Thanks. Quealk Seedsta, Quealk Seedsta. Peg Deem, I'm Suquamish, and this is our traditional territory. And for those of you who were got a chance to watch that event today, wow, you guys, you too. Well, okay, Robin too. It was so, I really miss witnessing that Indian pride that comes when you know these people have a connection with their ancestors when they wear that cedar or they wear that, this is a dentalium. And she's got the little dentalium. She's got all kinds of sparkle there. She's but yeah, and it was fun. It was good seeing the Suquamish tribal members come through, and just I don't recognize them anymore because last time I saw them, they were like this and running so fast I couldn't tell who it was. But they've certainly grown up and it was just so fun to see that today. And we have a recent tribal member who has come back. He was gone for a while. Now he's back. Yeah, 8 years he was gone. Hey, yeah, you owe us some time. Well, I know. And in the past, we've gone on the canoe journeys that would go up into Canada. And Vinny, you'll meet him in a minute. He was one of our dance groups. And back in the day, you were required. Okay, I required the dancers to. I had. You start with like one thing, and it's like, okay, I want to do a traditional style dance group, a Suquamish dance group. And what do? Well, you need the cedar bark regalia. So what did I do? They went out and gathered their cedar. So what does that do? It shows them they're on their traditional journey now. Along with that, we went into the language and they learned how to introduce themselves in the language, and everything we did within that dance group was to strengthen their grasp, their understanding, their view, their part of who they are, and that would include learning what their ancestors did. so we worked pretty hard on that. And there were some people who apparently I was pretty hard on some of the dancers, and they just walked out. Well, I thought I was just doing fine. Well, they came back to me and said, I get it now. I'm older, and when you were teaching us the dances, you were teaching us the dances, and it wasn't, if we were doing anything else, then it's not the dances. So I was a little hard on, okay, let's not go on with that. But the point is that we saw it today. We saw that follow through, that strength that has come so far with the language, with the art, with just these people's lives, that it gives you, our ancestors are giving us guidance on how to behave. Back in the day, we were in a village where everybody would take part in helping little kids grow and become who they are. The elders would watch, and they would watch that this particular young man was really interested in fishing. And the elders would send that little kid out with the men when they went out to go fish. And then it was those men would help teach that little boy, and he was already hooked on. His interest was fishing. Or their interest was weaving, wool weaving. Or their interest was carving, or their dance, storytelling. I mean, we always had our ancestors who took that responsibility, understood it, and would guide us through that. And so I think I just need to, I don't want to apologize to the dancers that walked out. But I will a little bit, just a little bit. But it was a fun time. We learned a lot. We traveled. We would get to go on these canoe journeys. We would get to go into the big houses up north and hear those words that those elders had to say. And it was stunning. And what an absolute thrill. I was consumed with, I just wanted to hear more. I wanted to hear what these elders had to say when the only light that was in these huge longhouses was a fire at this end and a fire at the other end. And there was dances, and there was land, and the food. I learned how to host from those northerners. You would walk into those longhouses, and there was just runners of these huge tables stacked together, and they were just heaping with food every day. If we were there overnight, if we were at that particular stop for 3 days, whatever it was, I learned hospitality from those people. Because I felt welcome, I felt special, I felt good, I felt accepted, and they wanted to hear from us as much as we wanted to hear from them. And it was that native camaraderie that just felt so good. And seeing you guys today reminded me of that. I'm really talking a lot, aren't I? I think it's Vincent's turn.
Mic check. Anyone named Mike in here? Hot Slachel, Twal Gwelapu, Vincent Charkalov, Teedsta, Til Alcha, Teed Soquab, Shed, Osiayus Chud, Alta, Suquamish Family and Friends Center. So, hey everybody, my name is Vincent. Vincent Charkalov, I'm a Suquamish tribal member, singer, dancer, weaver, village uncle, self-proclaimed funniest guy in the area. So I just wanted to say, raise my hands and say thank you for all being here today. This is a really cool opportunity. And the prompt was about what we were wearing?
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm wearing currently, this is generally my style. Pants, long sleeve shirt. I just decided to be a little bit fancier and add a vest and some of my favorite earrings. These ones are made by one of my friends down in Oregon, Cheyenne. She spent a lot of time working on these ones, so I was like, you know what? They're kind of calling out to me. I think I want to wear it for the show today. And then my tie, this was given to me when I graduated the tribal school in Suquamish as a senior by my social studies and senior seminar teacher. So I was like, you know, these kind of sort of match. They're both kind of red, right?
Oh, very nice. Thank you so much for coming. And, you know, we just had Peg up here, so we always like to hear you talk, Peg. So you're just in a great spot. We would all just listen to you the whole time. I think, see, everybody agrees. I mean, when I was a kid, Peg was the one who, you know, she was always making jewelry. She was making art. She was drawing books and things like that. And she was one of the people that I knew that just like lived in our culture all the time. And I think, you know, she let me come. I remember once you had me come and model some earrings that you had done, and you took some photos of me, and there were these little beaded ones, and then they had fox fur at the very bottom of them. And I just was like, she must think I'm so special to let me wear these. And then I think that I only know how to wear big earrings because of that time with you. And so, you know, my oldest daughter, right, because your kids rebel, she's 22, and she's like, I just like dainty earrings, Mom. I just like dainty jewelry. And I'm like, can't even pronounce it. Like, dainty? I don't understand what you're saying to me. Because I really, especially having been on tribal council and done a lot of advocacy in really unfriendly places, I really pick what I'm going to wear based on where I'm going to be that day. And so there are a lot of times, like, so when I wear something like this, it's usually, I mean, sometimes I just want to dress up and be fancy, but also I'm a little bit nervous. And so I want to shield myself. It's a way to, we call it Indian up. I'm going to Indian up this outfit. I'm going to wear the big earrings. I'm going to be unapologetically Native and right there, because I'm there especially representing my people, and that part's really important to me. My daughter interviewed me for a podcast for her communications class, and she was talking about a time where you felt it was an underdog story, and I told this story about when Irene Santos and Irene's on tribal council right now. She's a secretary, and she and I used to walk to the bus stop together as kids, and we'd walk down the dirt road. We lived in tribal housing. It finally got paved a couple years after we had lived there, and we used to walk down there all the time, and we'd sit outside waiting for the bus, and it was cold and yucky. And then, like, flash forward to 32 years later, and we're sitting outside the Obama White House waiting to go into a Christmas party, and we're both like, how can we be here? You could not have told those girls at like 9 and 10 years old that this is where we would be at this point. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is so cool, and being so excited to be there. And, you know, I had some, you know, Native earrings on and a purse, I think. And then the next time I got invited to go to the White House, though, it was the Trump administration White House. And so what I was wearing at that point was this like ribbon skirt that like had Native women holding hands all along the bottom of it, big giant earrings, a big cedar hat, like everything to just be like, I really need to Indian up in this situation. Yeah. They need to know I'm here in every possible way. So I'm wondering if you all can talk a little bit about times when you really felt like you needed that extra oomph of sovereign style. Hello?
So, sorry. So for me, I feel like every day that's for me. I used to work like in more of a tribal setting, but now I work by day as a paralegal. By night, I own my own business. I own a blog. I do all this other stuff, and I feel like my jewelry is just like who I am. So if people see me walking around, obviously I'll have, you know, my business pants on, and then I'll have like big beaded earrings or like whatever. But I just feel like that's a part of me, and it helps me like go through life to not be fearful, because when I wear my jewelry, it's like a sense of pride. Even though a lot of people are like, oh, it's just, you know, embellishment, it looks pretty, and yeah, it looks pretty, but it also has like a dual purpose. So yeah, just like waking up every day to Indian up, as they say, in a lot of situations where I'm uncomfortable or whatever. Usually I'm very like soft spoken, but I feel like when I have my jewelry on, I have this like extra sense of power, and I'm not afraid to speak up or say what I need to say, which is nice. I get to use my voice. I don't have that sense of, what do you call it? Imposter syndrome, that I thought I would normally have. It got me through college. My beaded earrings are how I met a lot of my friends. They're like, oh, she's native. Like you can tell, like you can be in public and you're like, they're native, like by like what they're wearing or whatever. So yeah, I just feel like in my daily life, even like just bedazzling some modern clothing.
I agree with a lot of that. It's just something daily in my life, and I don't really question it. It's just what I wear, and it does give me a sense of security and safety, and mostly like the symbols, because I'm really into birds, obviously. So I'll wear like my favorite bird earrings or some Kate earrings, and it's a really good way to support our artists, our local artists. Like my mom makes earrings, so of course I always have to wear hers all the time, and they're my favorite. But Kate makes earrings, and Stacy's makes earrings, you know, just all these different people in our community that we want to support and show their support by wearing their earrings out in public, out into big meetings or things like that. I just work at the tribe, so I don't go very many places, but yeah, it does give me a sense of safety, and also like wearing it out into public kind of helps me take up spaces that are meant for me and fight my own imposter syndrome as well by like, oh, I'm meant to be here. I can do good things. I can go out and, you know, decolonize things by taking up space.
Thanks. Imposter syndrome. I think I did. Oh, I had that. When I was a kid, like, I don't know, 6th or 7th grade, my buddy and I were, we didn't want to be Indian. It was like negative. It was like, even when my brother and I played the Lone Ranger, I had to be Tano. It was like, no, I don't want. I didn't know what that was until you just said it, and yeah. Identifying with what you wear, I think that has always fascinated me. When I was younger, there were no other Suquamish people that identified as Suquamish. It was me, my brother, and Aggie Pratt. I don't know if any of you remember Aggie Pratt. She was very proud to be Suquamish. And everybody else was like, well, they're Clallam or they're Duwamish. Or it was like, I have lived here all my life, honey, and you're Suquamish. So I don't know why they identified with something. I don't know why. We were very proud because my mom was very proud of being Suquamish. And through the years, you become aware of what you're comfortable with. And I was very comfortable with Suquamish culture. And at the time, there were no Suquamish elders I could look to or who were willing to teach me Suquamish culture. There were none. But I was fascinated with the clothing that our ancestors wore. So I put some time and effort into questioning people. If I knew weavers, I would chit-chat with traditional weavers. I would chit-chat with people that worked with cedar bark, because Suquamish clothing was from cedar bark. And I just would question people. And so, you know what you do, you just gather what you want, what you need from wherever you can get that information. And I just developed do or die stuff. It was like you do it, and if it's wrong, well, you just, okay, that's one more thing I know not to do. And you go on to the next thing. So it was a few years ago, decades ago, we have what we call Chief Seattle Days in Suquamish, and my daughter ran for Chief Seattle Day Princess. And what I did, with help from some friends, is made a cedar cape and cedar skirt. And it was the first time in I don't know how many years that there was a Suquamish woman that went down by the water, and she was wearing traditional Suquamish clothing. And she was also a puller on the canoe, so she carried her paddle. And it was just, you know, I was so proud. And I knew I'm going the right way, I'm doing the right things. I'm gonna keep going, doing this. So, but wealth, sovereignty, I think I agree with you guys, because when you have that physical identity, it's like I've had this for a few years. I gathered the long dentalium over years of just looking for it, digging for it. I don't think, these are the longest I've ever seen. And in our tradition, the longer the dentalium, the richer you were. So, sorry girls. But, you know. But that's what it does. I'm so proud. It's the knowledge behind all of these wonderful things. And it's knowing, it's not just having stuff, it's knowing what's behind it. How far this knowledge has come. It's traveled through time to these pieces of information. They're important, or they would not have traveled this far. So there are like wearing, you know, looking, digging for the longest dentalium I could find, making a Suquamish style necklace. And then I'm sorry, let me get these out. These are, well, they're contemporary, but they were gathered through trade through Russia. And we call them kobolds. And they were traded, and in burial sites, you can still find, they used to put them in jars. Our ancestors, when glass jars were available to us, they would gather these beads and they would be buried with them because the people needed to take this form of identity of wealth with them. I've seen jars of these really ancient beads, and you can tell they're ancient because the center of the bead has been worn away over the years, so it would have a larger opening. So it had been used, reused, restrung, and that glass would just wear away. But I've seen jars of these things. So what it does is the weight of it, I feel good. It's like a little hug on my arm, right? When you wear stuff like that.
It's like the weighted blankets, right? That are all the rage now, right? But that's what we do with our jewelry. It's like heavy, or like a wool blanket, same.
Yes. So and I liked what you had said. It's like just a pair of earrings, but with Native people, it means even more. It's like a material item that is, they know the history. It has weight. It has meaning, and you identify with that, and you have like certain. I know you guys do. You have certain earrings you can't live without. You keep track of them. I see, and it's just important because it has such a background. It has your ancestry behind that. Your ancestors coveted and wore the same thing. And the reason the cobalts were so great is because it was the same color as the water and as a night sky. So I mean, there's always a connection. And dentalium was gathered in the deepest of deep water. And you had to have the right tools that you would drop down. Well, okay, hold this. I need my hands. So there was a tool that had a lot of wood on the end of it. And the fishermen had developed, they put a rock or a weight around the end of this long shaft, and they'd sink it down, and they'd have a string tied on the weight, so they wouldn't let. So here you have a bunch of pieces of wood going down until these fishermen knew, okay, we hit the dentalium. So the tool hit the dentalium. They'd pull the string, the weight would drop, and it would close around the dentalium that grew upright like this. So it would grab. So you'd have to do it over and over and over, and it was up to the fishermen where to find the biggest dentalium. If you had one dentalium that was as long as your arm, you were probably the richest person on the face of the earth. And you could trade for anything you wanted. See, so it's things like this. It has meaning. There's an identity of sovereignty, like very secure and very proud of being native, and not just native, being Suquamish, aware of their history. And you guys were looking pretty good there today too, sporting that fancy stuff, walking around. It was very nice, very nice. You know what? Does anybody have any questions for any of us?
The dentarium? Where does that come? What is it? Is it an animal?
Oh, what is the dentalium? It's a shell. It grows deep salt water. The deepest, from what I understand, the deepest and the largest would grow off the ocean side of Vancouver Island.
So they're specific to a certain region, or they're found like in water?
Specific to a certain region, I think so. But we would get it through trade because they're a cool shell. To us, they were a form of money, like so many tribes on the coast, certainly up north. They were, well, there's stories I could tell, but you have young girls here, so. It's, you could trade, and one of the biggest trade, not trade show, but encampments was at the mouth of the Columbia River, because all the tribes would come down from the north, Washington, Oregon, and big encampments down there once a year. And then California, everybody would come up and we'd meet at these huge, and you'd bring your best stuff. Suquamish always had the best baskets. That was our art form. Cedar baskets. Par excellence. We were good. Always you could trade for that. And then we even had, I've seen coral from like Louisiana down that way. It would be traded up and show up at these huge encampments. So trade was, that's how we lived. That was our business, trading. So there was everything that had value showed up down there. I was down there for a conference a few years ago, and when I was up at Macaw, there had been, I don't know, what's the other name for Macaw? Neabay. I was up there for some of their celebrations, and I was camped out by the shore, the water. But there had been some kind of infestation or some kind of unfortunate sickness that had happened to these little purple shells, these snail shells. And man, I looked up and And there were millions of these things. They were all had died. Something had happened, infested. It was unfortunate. But they left all of these purple and white shells. And I went down and I gathered a big jar of them. And I had taken this jar down to the to Columbia River. There was a little conference there, and we said, well, we're gonna, bring stuff that you wanna trade. We're gonna do a little reenactment of the trade fair down there. So I took this, and I was the most popular shell girl. I was everybody wanted these shells. So that gave me a little bit of insight of if you had something good for trade, you could get anything you wanted. I got some nice earrings. You would not believe what I traded. Nice. So I think the bottom line for me is it's good to see these young people going through what I went through when I was gathering information and needed an identity that I obviously wasn't getting through public schools at the time. It can be beastly out there. But when you have that feeling of who you are, it doesn't bother you. You know it's there. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to grow up. And you take it on. And it's always good to, as you step through it, it's behind you now, and you go on. But I'm so proud of the Suquamish tribe for doing so well with the language. Decades ago, I'm going to start saying decades ago now. Decades ago, there was a young man who approached the Suquamish tribe, and he said, would your tribe like to learn the language? And they said, well, we don't know. Go ask Peg Dean. He looked me up, and I said, you bet. So we organized classes, and he was bringing back the language, our language, to us. And it got bigger and bigger, and one day he told me, Aswali is his tradition. What's his other name? Oh, Zeke Zahir. Oh, man, he was hungry for tribes to teach. That was his passion. That was his life. Teaching, bringing the language back. And now, he told me one time, he said, one day you're going to hear it. You're going to hear your people speaking that in the store. Guess what happened to me about 2 years ago? Yes, there were Suquamish people speaking Lashitsi in the store. Yes. Thank these young people for picking that up and carrying it on. And I'm glad to see that. And thanking you.
Sorry, that's a lot to think about. What was the prompt again? I'm just kidding. So, the way that I Indian up, I go by a little bit different of a name. It's called re-indigenizing spaces. So I've been working with kids since I was a kid. I started out in the language program as a contract teacher when I was about 16. And when I moved to Oregon, I continued to work with the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde in their youth education department. So one of the ways that I was able to re-indigenize the spaces is this. This is just a small way of doing it. This is just so you all can see. But if you haven't noticed, I'm a little bit of a fidgeter, so sometimes I'll play with my earrings. I'm like, oh, okay, these are the red, black, and yellow ones with the 3 fish in the center, that, and then the silver backing. And I know that was made by one of my friends, and she made it for me with the intention of giving it to me. And Peck talked a lot about the commerce that we used to have and trading and giving, and so she gave her time, materials, thoughts, and prayers just for this, just for me. And so I like to represent that out there. And the beading industry is huge. You throw a rock and you can probably find somebody who beads earrings, but
Kati is right out there selling her earrings. They're pretty amazing.
But my friend and I, we joke around about this. It's getting that hashtag #TradishKamish, and that's a way of her. That's a way of her getting a little bit of wealth for herself. These were a gift. I didn't buy these. These were a gift, but these were given back to me, and so this is a way of kind of channeling those prayers and that time and that energy and whatever those prayers look like. Because we're only one way. I mean, even with us, we have 5 different ways to pray the Suquamish way up here. But it's awesome to be able to represent different people and show off their art. I love it when people come up to me and ask, oh, where'd you get those earrings? And then I feel them real quick, like, oh, this is made by da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, these are the size, these are the shape, these are the colors. I like to be able to give that back out to the community. And plus, it's always cool to refer a friend whenever they're trying to buy some jewelry.
Absolutely. I really like how you all spoke at some point about the weight of things and like you knew that they were there, the feeling of them. I remember, I feel like I start seeing different style pieces where I can imagine Suquamish things happening in them. And like, for me, the movie, the Black Panther movie, when that one came out, it was like, felt like it was like the closest to an indigenous superhero movie that I've seen. Like I'm waiting for it when we get our turn to do that. I know Echo is coming out and I'm really excited about that, but there's this part, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it for you if you haven't watched Black Panther yet. It's been a long time, and I'm sorry, there's just spoilers. One of my favorite parts about it is that at one point during the epic battle scene near the end, the people from Wakanda at one point like lift up their wool blankets and they hold them up and they're made with vibranium in them so they can reflect off. And all I imagined was Suquamish weaver Danielle Morissette as like that was her blanket because she's designed these amazing blankets. Oh, and Danielle is here too, and she was in the show. And like when we had all of these ones, she made one that is in all the hotel rooms at the tribe at the Clearwater Casino Hotel Resort. And when they all showed up, it was so great. Kate and I happened to be there, and we saw all these 8th gen blankets, and we're like, I think that those are all of Danielle's designs. And we got to open them up and like look at them and feel the weight of them. And those were the exact blankets that I imagined like should have been there in Wakanda, like this, you know, getting to see Afrofuturism and then getting to see indigenous futurism and what comes in that place. And, you know, and in the script for the fashion show, I talked about Peg being this cultural warrior who really just brought it back through all of these things. For the people who were downstairs and didn't get to have her stand up and like be acknowledged, because she did that. She made that so that all of us and future generations get to have that experience of our ancestors made this for us. We're carrying this on. We're carrying this forward in some hostile places, but also some really warm places where we really want to be and we feel safe being now that 50 years ago people didn't feel safe doing that. So I want to open it up for questions because I think we could all just talk for a long time, and I didn't leave time for questions the other night. So. Any questions out there? Okay.
That was energetic. Sorry, that was aggressive.
We're excited. We felt that energy.
As you made the reference to Wakanda, we talked to students a lot about how snotty-nosed res kids and many of the culture that's is not only being popularized, but we're seeing so much of it is that cool. So we're seeing mimicking in lots of other ways where people are mimicking the culture. For you, watching this resurgent and this definitely the futurism of indigenous, people are copying it, obviously. And is that exploitation for you, or is that just the where we've now normalized and embedded seeing indigenous excellence?
Ooh, that's a good question. Wow. I was gonna point towards Vincent over there, but look, Peggy
You know-
already.
There's that can of worms.
I have an answer. It's gonna come and go. Guess who's still here? It's gonna come and go. Suquamish is still here. And we've seen many, many things come and go. And well, we have our own jokes that keep us going. But we're definitely aware. And this, well, for me, I'm gonna be 75, so this is like the 5th or 6th cycle of stuff that I've been through. So it's like, wait a minute and it'll all go away and something else will happen. So that's my take on it. You guys?
I'll say something really quick before Vincent goes. I just wanted to point out that a lot of the times it does come off as, or people kind of push it off as showing appreciation or showing, respect or whatever. But sometimes you have to, it gets tricky because not everyone knows the medicine that we put into our stuff and to our regalia and things like that. And so like it is really annoying when you see so many people buying sage at like H&M or whatever, and then they're just like saging and saying all these things, but like they're taking pictures of it while they're supposed to be like, they don't really realize the medicine and like the energies that they're attracting to themselves when they're just trying to make it a positive thing. So it does get really tricky and yeah.
That's also a really multi-dimensional question because it depends on I'm a firm believer that intention and methodology must match up for a good outcome. And so what that involves is, yeah, you can have a tribal artist, and if they're learning it from maybe a couple of pictures that they learn, as Crystal said, they may not get all of the teachings that they might have absorbed along the way. Whereas we have a couple of few non-tribal artists that live around the area that sometimes do better work than the tribal artists, but it's not about who's better. But they have taken the time to sit down with some of our teachers that we may have learned from like way back in the day, who are known as these, like the cream of the crop. They're the ones that got all of the knowledge, or most of the knowledge, and these non-tribal people are learning from those people. So they're carrying on the teachings, what each one of the shapes, colors, each one of the schemes, everything that means. So it can come off as a little bit of cultural appropriation, but as Peg said, it's just gonna be on to the next thing. Is it really worth tripping about? I mean, it's an opportunity to educate them, but is it going to be well received? And then from that point, is it worth trying to educate the person?
Yeah, and I think for me too, the most recent one, I believe it was Kate Spade that just came out with the ribbon skirt design. I'm like, ew, what is this? Like, excuse me. And I love Kate Spade, don't get me wrong. Like, I have my little Kate Spade heart purse and I wear it around. But at the same time, I feel like it's just, like people try to, they think it's nice and then they try to adapt it. Even though they go about it inappropriately. And I feel like it even happens within like indigenous communities too, because some artists will take a different artist's work, won't give them credit for it, and then you're like, hey, like, like the Spider-Man meme when they're like pointing at each other, like, to me, like, that's what I feel like. So I try to take it upon myself to where I buy something from someone I know, like A, B, and C, like, this is who made it, this is what it represents, this is the story, their intention behind what it means to them. When people ask me, I'm not just like, I don't know, it's cool. Like there's like a story behind, you know, like there's a passion behind what they designed. Like even if it's just like land back on a t-shirt, like what does land back actually mean? Do they know what it actually means? Are they supporting the cause of what land back is?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
When we talk about, I mean, one of the questions I get asked pretty regularly, is it okay for non-native people to wear indigenous jewelry or shirts like the one that Crystal's wearing over there, right? Like people can buy those shirts in lots of places. I was just thinking of, is it Rosalind from Lummy, who does all those amazing designs? And I mean, and lots of people talk about it, and it is okay, at least my teachings are that it's okay to buy those if you're buying them from an indigenous artist, from a good place where you know that they're doing it. I also am, I hope at this point, getting famous for saying I pay full price to artists.
Yep.
I do not try to get them to lower their prices. I love saying, I bought these from Jesse Old Coyote and I paid full price for them. like how great is that? Like that's riches, to be able to pay an artist what they're really worth. Like that says a lot. And so, so I know that's a question that often gets asked. Maybe we have time for one more question. Got a couple more minutes. Anybody?
I have a gesture workshop I would like to go.
All right. Yeah.
I was just saying, I have a gesture workshop for all of you. Why? Because Suquamish is right there. When you go to some of our gatherings, you're gonna see people do this. This is pre-contact. We didn't clap. Could you hold this for a minute? When you go like that, to us, it's a violent gesture. What are you doing? What are you doing? It was a violent. So pre-contact, with your right hand, you would acknowledge someone. When you see someone coming in the door and you're both headed to the coffee pot in the morning, you know, you give them a gesture. The right hand only. Do not ever, well, I recommend that you do not use your left hand. That, if you gesture with your left hand, you're being insulted. If you do, now the girls, if you have both hands up, that is, that's like a super acknowledgement. That's like, oh my God. What you just said, what you were just conveying to me is now part of my life. Thank you for that. That teaching. Here's the ultimate one. This, could you hold that again? This is really old, and I've only seen it one time in Suquamish. It's this. There was a young woman decades ago who walked by me and she did that. That means you carry the culture and lay the table up for Suquamish very well. You cannot just do any of these gestures willy-nilly. When you do this, you are aligning yourself with that person, and you are now in that person's, you've committed to a friendship with that person. And if they get in trouble, you're expected to be their friend. It just is so heavy. the culture was so rich, deep with meaning. So when you're at Suquamish and you see people do this, I know that our elders do that, or people that have been on the canoe journeys, they do that. I think it's great. Now, let's remember, this is not good. You may get attacked in the parking lot. But if the person who is, if their speaker is standing up and telling a bunch of lies or dragging your family through the mud, you let everybody know that maybe that's not what he should be doing. So I just, the culture is so rich. And, they know it. It's part of them. And I want to thank Vinny coming back to the res. He's so wonderful.
Well, that's our presentation for today. I'm so glad that I got to be here, and I'm glad you all came too, because I'm like stressed out now about which hand. Because I'm really bad with right and left. So but whatever. So this one. Anyway, thank you so much. It was so great to be in conversation with all of you. If you haven't had a chance to look through the museum, you're going to have to come on a different day when it's open, because it's closed now and they work really hard. So thank you everybody for coming.
All of you for coming as well. Thank you. This was just so much more than any of us expected. Thank you. And I would like to invite all of you to join us for a reception.